How's it going there, ladies and gentlemen? Hellstone here again, and for the first time in a very long time, I am here. I'm actually uploading a video. Now, if you don't follow this channel very often, or you're new to the channel, I have not been able to upload a video in about a half of a year now. Recently, I commissioned into the U.S. Army as a lieutenant, and so I've been going through Bullock, and life just got insanely busy. And so never really had the opportunity to upload a video, and so now I have some time and I'm excited to upload a video. And I figured, what better way to hop back into this whole YouTube thing than to do a military history video. So today I'm very excited. We're going to be learning a little bit more about the Australian slouch hat. Now, if you're not familiar, it is their classic military headwear. I don't know if it's necessarily military in nature, but at least for me, my own personal experiences, you might be able to figure, I've always associated it with their military headgear. Now, what's funny is during my time at Fort Sill, I actually had a number of Australian soldiers that would often train with us nearby to where I was, and so I would see them at the store walking around with their slouch hats on, and I always thought it was such a cool look. Now, here in the U.S. Army, we have our Stetson hats, and I might throw a picture of it up somewhere here on the screen. And don't get me wrong, those things are awesome. I love them. But I have to give it to the Australians on this one. So today, we're going to be learning a little bit more about the history behind the hat. So without further ado, let's hop into the video.
You Australians are crude, undisciplined, and the most ill-mannered soldiers I've ever encountered.
The slouch hat. Slouch hats with their turned-up brims have been part of Australian military history since 1885, when they were adopted by the Victorian Mounted Rifles. The Australians first wore such hats into battle on the international stage when the nation fought in the Boer War from 1899 to 1902. Australia before the 20th century was separated into colonies. Australia didn't become a federation until 1901. By 1890, military commanders of the separate Australian colonies agreed on a standard uniform. Australian forces, with the exception of artillery, would adopt the slouch hat. Victoria and Tasmania would adopt...
Okay, really quick, I just have to point this out because, as a matter of fact, I am an artillery officer. Why didn't the Australian artillery adopt the hat when other branches did? If somebody who knows that, please let me know down in the comments, because I am actually very interested in that.
Pinning their hats on the right, and the other colonies on the left.
Notice there's not many blokes around.
It's the war, mate, the war.
All the more shearless for us, eh?
Pinning the hat to one side meant a soldier could hold their rifle at the slope and march with their rifles resting on a shoulder without damaging the brim of their hats. Some regiments throughout Australia had different rifle drills, so they favored one side over the other. It was also thought the eyes right command was easier to perform with the brim up on the right. Ultimately, pinning the left side up won out. Historically in the field, the slouch hat was often worn fully down for protection against the sun or rain. There are in fact a number of different ways to wear a slouch hat in the Australian military. General Bridges, the first commander of the 1st Australian Imperial Force, was found wearing his slouch hat back to front when he was fatally wounded at Gallipoli. As a mark of respect and remembrance for Bridges, when slouch hats are worn at the Royal Military College Duntroon, the chin strap buckle is worn on the right side of the face and the brim down. The hat bands can also have different meanings. The band around the hat is known as a puggaree. They represent a connection with India and the British Empire and are also used for insulation. This was adopted by the British in the 19th century for hats and helmets. Puggaree evolved throughout Australian history with different colors for different services and active service. The majority of Australian slouch hats are now worn typically as part of a dress or ceremonial uniform.
Okay, so that's pretty interesting. With the U.S. Army, and of course I'm obviously going to be making comparisons between the two, on our officer caps and our officer sleeves on our dress uniforms, we have different color bands that denote what branch you're a part of. So for example, back to it, field artillery, our color is red, so on the sleeve braid we have a red band, and on our caps we have a red band, whereas like the infantry would be a light blue, the cavalry would be like a yellow or a gold, and so that is a pretty interesting commonality there.
Being felt, they're not overly durable and must be taken care of. Modern Australian ceremonial slouch hats have a puggree with 7 pleats. 6 pleats represent the states of Australia, with the 7th representing the territories. A unit color patch is worn on the right of the puggree. A corps or regiment hat badge is worn on its front. The famous Australian service badge, known as the Rising Sun Badge, is worn displayed on the folded brim. This is the official insignia of the Australian Army.
Very cool.
What do you think?
It's all right.
Perhaps the most famous slouch hats are the ones worn by some units of the Royal Australian.
Okay, real quick, sorry. I know I'm pausing it a lot, but I also noticed that a lot of slouch hats have feathers in them, while others don't. So if somebody could tell me, is there a reason behind it? Is it just a personal preference thing? That would be awesome.
In armored corps, such as the cavalry and light horse regiments. These regiments wear emu plumes behind the Rising Sun Badge, which comes from the tradition where light horsemen would chase down emus and steal their feathers to wear in their hats, which was a mark of their riding skill.
Now look, you just stick with me and Scotty and you're sweet as a nut.
Chiller's the best horse handler in the regiment, Dave.
Though today the slouch hat is commonly associated with Australia, similar hats have shown up everywhere throughout history. The Australians themselves likely were inspired by hats worn by the native police in Burma in the 19th century. In England, slouch hats were popular during King Charles I's reign, strongly associated with cavaliers in the Royalist army. These hats were highly decorated and used to aid in displaying status.
My lords, I give you greetings.
Your Highness.
In America, hats of this style showed up during the Civil War, with regular and volunteer units attempting to distinguish themselves with hats in a number of different ways. Theodore Roosevelt further sported a slouch hat which he wore when leading the 1st United States Volunteer Cavalry, known as the Rough Riders, in the Spanish-American.
So Theodore Roosevelt is, funnily enough, my second favorite U.S. president, and that is the first time, seeing that picture when I was a little kid, the first time I had ever seen a slouch hat, and even then, I always thought it was just such a cool, unique look.
War.
So if Wheeler's down and Wood's taking over the brigade, who's taking over the regiment? I am.
To date, female drill sergeants in the United States can still elect to wear a slouch hat, which is a tradition dating back to 1972, when women were first authorized to serve as Army drill sergeants. Righto, I'm Bruce.
Oh, it looks like that's the end of the video. Anyway, I was about to say, though, just with that last little bit there, again, during my time at Fort Sill, that's one of the Army bases where basic training privates go to obviously enter into the military. And so I'd see a lot of drill instructors there along with the female drill instructors with their slouch hats. But anyway, it looks like that's the end of the video. So let's talk about this a little bit more. All right. Make sure that's recording there. All right, so I actually really enjoyed that video a lot. I got a lot out of that. It was very concise, and I feel like it was really well put together, but I learned a little bit more about the hats. Obviously, any headgear in any military unit, any country, anything like that is going to be steeped in symbolism. I love the connection there between India, Australia, how it all goes back to England before that, even America. Found their way in there. So I think that'll do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next time.